Hello, welcome to this episode of Paddle and Flow. My name is Alex,
I'm Nicola.
and we wanted to just say a thank you at the start of this video to everyone who's engaged and watched the podcast or listened to it on Spotify over the last few days. We've recorded a lot of these episodes before launch, so we've just cut this in to say thank you very much, which is why we'll be wearing different clothes in a moment if you're watching. Nicola, do you want to add?
Yes, I would like to say thanks to everybody for taking the time to listen or watch and to respond with comments and phone calls and, really appreciate the time that people have taken out of their busy schedules.
Without further ado, then, we will go and record the next episode, which is why we're sitting here together, and we'll leave you to listen to episode 4 of Paddle and Flow. Thank you very much.
Thank you and hope you enjoy.
Welcome to this episode of Paddle and Flow, episode number 4, where Nicola and I are going to talk about some things that have gone on in the last week, and we're also going to look at a little bit about the equipment that we use out on the water. Nicola, hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right. All right. It's been a bit of a week here in Dunbar.
It's been very exciting.
I know, we've had some settled weather, which interestingly, after our weather chat last week, we've actually had gorgeous conditions.
It's been amazing.
So you've been out a couple of times this week. I haven't been out at all because my back's not quite been up for it, although physio this morning said Thursday should be okay for a paddle. So I'll go out for a gentle paddle on Thursday and see what happens. So I've not been able to take advantage of these conditions, but you have. What have you been up to?
I've been out 5 times in the last 8 days.
5 times in the last 8 days. That's fantastic.
Well, this is the 9th day, so yeah. Started a week past Sunday. Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. Is that 5? Yeah. Paddled with a variety of different people, including your lovely wife, which I have to say we had a sublime paddle. Beautiful. So calm.
So calm. Viz down to 20 metres. Fish were jumping. As a kayak fisherman, that hurt to hear.
The tiny fish, which chased by salmon.
Yeah, just with where it was, maybe some sea trout, some salmon or some bass. I mean, I don't know. The description I was given was quite vague. My wife, not the best historian, They were small and they were silver and they were coming out of the water, and I forgot to turn the GoPro on until after it finished. And that were her exact words.
I couldn't really add anything else to that apart from there might have been a fleck of orange.
Fleck of orange. That might change it. So I reckon with where you were, in the area of Dunbar that you were at, it could be sea bass. We get big sea bass this time of year, but not normally in Scotland. So bass grow and sort of the bigger bass hunt in October, and you start to get some really big bass down south. Wouldn't necessarily expect that here, but maybe.
Quite shallow water.
Quite shallow water. So again, unlikely to be pollock in that shallow water, although maybe chasing some fish in. Could have been mackerel underneath, but we're in November. Unlikely to be mackerel in November. So I'm kind of gone through the list and I've come to a conclusion of bass, sea trout or salmon.
I have a question. Where do the mackerel go?
To deeper water. So I think it's all about, so obviously our water temperatures cool in this as we get, into winter, our temperatures drop. So if you think that when we started recording this podcast, you and I were out on a paddle and the water was maybe, I think 13 degrees, I think it said. And now we're down at 10, and the colder we get, the fish want a more stable temperature, so they tend to go deeper where there is a more stable temperature. So they'll go out into the North Sea where the temperature's not fluctuating as much. So the mackerel will run down there. Now, I've caught mackerel in November offshore, so it's possible, we're early November, it's possible that it was mackerel, but just with where it was, given the fact that we're in a cooling winter, difficult to know, but I reckon some sea bass, and that's my kayak nemesis. That's the fish I always want to catch on the kayak, and I've still not done it, and I've caught a couple from shore, but yeah. So you had
they weren't bass.
Yes. Yeah, we'll just stay with that positivity. So you 8 paddles? No.
5.
5 paddles. Where have you been?
Where have I been? Almost down to Torness with 2 paddlers that I haven't really paddled with before. So that was a bit of a marathon, quite fast for my poor recovering shoulder. But again, just a beautiful, calm day. And then in the other direction, up to Tinningham.
Tinningham, yeah. Whiteberry Point, Tinningham.
And some lovely little surf waves there, and back along Belhaven. surfing the waves at the end of the bar, the Tyne bar at the end of Belhaven. Really nice. And then the wind picked up, so we were blown home.
Yeah, and you said that on the way home it started to get a bit choppy. You had a bit of an incident with your the lovely pink Scorpio.
I might have found a rock taking a shortcut. Yes, quite a big, like a sofa-wide rock. Yeah. Tired. And I know boats are meant to be used and scratched, but I am, as I say, trying to, or as I was explaining yesterday, trying to keep the boat going for as long as possible.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. And it is a good boat and it is a lifetime boat, so you don't want to be putting holes in it. It's like that time when you snuck me through a gap that I didn't fit through and I ended up getting stuck and nearly falling out my boat. It sounds quite similar.
Well, yes, because I did fall in. I think the technical term is rock hopping. What are you?
I'm just laughing at the fact you were like, yeah, you didn't, and I hadn't understood, I hadn't quite appreciated how much you had fallen in when you told me this story before we went onto the podcast.
E-
You didn't swim?
no, it was a deep water desperation stroke.
Deep water. And last time you did that, that's the second one this
It's the
year.
second one this year, and like, so I bought my sea kayak first sea kayak into 2020, and suddenly, and I usually stay upright, but this year when I've got the poorly shoulder, all of a sudden I'm falling in.
Could be due to fatigue.
It possibly is. Anyway, so yeah, surfing towards this rock. I took a shortcut. I could have steered around, as I had been doing for every other rock for the previous 3.5 hours, but decided to go over the top of this one, except the wave disappeared. So I ended up on the rock, stuck, scratched. And then when the next wave came, I fell in and had to recover myself and picked up quite a few barnacle emblems, I think.
It's a good description, a barnacle emblem. I've seen it. It does look quite barnacle-y.
It's on the side because
As you were tipped in.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
various suggestions of heat guns and hair dryers have been passed my way, but I think I'll just leave it. It's a souvenir
Souvenir.
of a daft thing that I shouldn't have done, but hey.
That's how we learn.
Yep, but yeah, it's been a great weekend on bar.
Yeah, so we've had, it's interesting because you got to paddle with these guys as well. We've had the International Sea Kayak Guiding Alliance, not association, I made that mistake more than once, International Sea Kayak Guiding Alliance here in Dunbar running an incident management course. And I was lucky enough to sort of hang about with them for a couple of days and do some photography. And if there's an opportunity, I'll share some of those pictures. And they're all on my social media, on my Instagram, at ELKF photo. But they're all up there, and it was a great opportunity. Got to hang around for a couple of days. I managed to get 3 good days with them. Not the full day, obviously, because of my back, but was able to follow them around, take some pictures, and I made a little sort of short video as well, which was quite cool. You got the much better experience though. You got to paddle with them.
I did, somehow. And again, that was at the end of a 10-mile trip. It was really, yeah, should have been getting off the water and going home, but yeah, and one of the guys said, "Oh, do you mind if Nicola tags along with you?" Because a few of them were going out to do some rock hopping while waiting for a night exercise. So it was sunset, it was a beautiful time of day, lovely, and I got to watch that rock hop.
The exact words you used to me, and I am going to share this on the podcast, was that they were all much younger and fitter than you, which I asked if that meant you got left behind.
Well, I did get left behind because they had all launched before me. Like, from the beginning, they'd all launched before me, and then I met one of our local paddlers going out of the harbour. He was coming in, I was going out, so we stopped for a chat. And I hadn't appreciated that they were actually really, really, really properly waiting for me until one of them popped his nose back into the harbour in a kind of "where are you" fashion. But yeah, they were all younger and fitter and probably physically fit as well.
Yeah.
Like not sporting an injury kind of thing. And the swell was a bit bigger. I would, if I'd been in my Virgo and if I'd been 100%, I would have had a go. But
Yeah.
it was, I did feel like a complete newbie hanging out with these guys. But really interesting.
It was a great course, and there was some really the sort of really good characters on it, and a lot of these people are sort of paddling all over the world, and it's fair to say they've got a lot of experience in guiding groups and taking people around places like Chile, the Arctic, Norway, Alaska, Patagonia.
And one has paddled around Scotland. So he was saying the last time he was in Dunbar was when he paddled around Scotland.
which is
which is
brilliant.
brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, and they said it was a great venue to hold the course.
Yep.
It was our front garden.
Yeah, our home
Yeah,
waters. Yeah.
and they just because of the swell and all the different varieties of sort of features that we have, it gives them an opportunity to test and challenge. We've also got sort of 3 lifeboat stations within a reasonable distance that they could train with, and they did do an exercise with North Berwick and Dunbar RNLI, which was a great learning opportunity, I think, for all involved. I think that's a summary of our week, I think, is it?
It's a very exciting week. Yeah, it was really good to have them here. Is it? Because they were here last year, and they go home and it's all, no, it's quite quiet.
Yeah, and you know, we've got such a good paddling community. It's great to see everyone get involved. You know, that's now. So we had the instant management course last year. We had Felipe come through on his round the world trip. He got good reception, and then we've had this course.
And
this
Dougal came past as well.
And Dougal came past as well.
Surf ski world record.
The surf ski world record, yes, of course.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that. That somehow I missed that. I remember it happening, but I missed him being here.
Yeah, I did it as well. I think it was more the surf ski community were involved with taking care of him when he stopped in. And then you're hoping to get back out paddling later this week?
Later this week. Let's see. Physio says I can try. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, this morning, I'm a little bit stiff, and I think I was out last night doing some photography of the Northern Lights. Didn't get any decent pictures really at all. Maybe 1 or 2 nice night photos, but I didn't really get very much. But it was cold, and I probably didn't have quite enough layers on. And I think I got back home, I sort of sat down at my computer for a bit, organising the photos. And this morning I've woken up and it's just a little bit stiff. But the physio is fairly happy. Had a physio just before we started recording this podcast, and yeah, we'll try. We'll go and see. I you know, it's not going to be a long paddle. I'm not going to probably do much fishing. I might take a rod with me, just try and find out what those fish were. But I'm not going to be sitting. I think it's my sit on top rather than a sitting kayak for me. I think if I go in a sitting kayak, I think I'm going to risk sort of just being in that kind of locked in position, which I don't think would be good for it. Whereas at least on the sit on top, I can get my legs out around the side. I can be a bit more mobile. I've got more space to be mobile on the kayak. I'll take a fishing rod because I can, because I almost always take a fishing rod if I'm on my sit on top. And we'll just go and see. And even if I don't, if I don't catch anything, or even if we just paddle around the harbour and back in, maybe just that would be fine, just to test to see how we're going. But I'm back at work on Friday, so I'm fully fit as far as most things are concerned. I just need to give it a shot. You got some interesting news about your shoulder. It's getting better, I think.
It is. Well, the GP says it's still frozen, but the physio I saw last week says it's not frozen. It is now rotator cuff tendinopathy. So I'm waiting for an appointment for the next round of grueling exercises. But 3 to 6 months of exercises she reckons, sort it. I should end up pain-free.
That's all the interesting stuff we've been up to.
But it was such a good week.
But it was such a good
we
week.
Keep talking about it.
And we've got some settled weather till Saturday, although there's a bit of wind.
Yeah, I think Wednesday's a bit windier. Thursday, your chosen day looks amazing. Tomorrow looks amazing.
Yeah, tomorrow does look good, but I'm not ready for tomorrow. A couple more days, and you're too tired. I'm going to go photograph seals, and you're welcome to join me on the seal photography trip if
that
you'd
would
like.
Be pretty cool, actually. Little white ones.
Yeah, go and see if we can.
Yeah.
Not spook any white fluffy seals.
Or
that would
their
not be good.
parentage. Yeah.
I have to be discreet on the high line. Anyway, moving on. So that brings us nicely onto the topic that we chose to discuss today, which was our equipment. And the sort of things that we'd like to take paddling. And it's interesting because the instant management guys were here, it's made me think a little bit more about maybe some of the equipment that I do and don't take out with me. It's just sort of prompted some thoughts. I was watching them do some rope rescue from sort of putting in a rescue swimmer off a rock and then swimming a kayak ashore. And I was thinking about how they were doing that. And the sort of things that I was thinking about as well, actually, when I'm on my sit on top, I don't take very much with me in terms of additional safety gear. I carry my PFD, obviously. I think that's really important, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. I have a radio that I use on channel 16, and I have my fishing rods, and I have a knife, and that pretty much all I take with me when I'm out on my kayak. But thinking about what these guys were carrying, we're thinking about paddling with other people, perhaps a throw line. don't carry a throw line very often, and they were using all sorts of carabiners and quick draws to lash kayaks together. And for them, obviously, they're thinking about, well, actually, if I'm in a remote place where there's no one to come and rescue me, what am I going to do? I'm thinking, can I stay warm and dry? And, the other really important thing in knowledge is making sure I can flip my kayak back over. So I wear a semi-dry suit most of the time. I'm about to buy a full dry suit because the semi-dry suit's kind of outlived its usefulness now that I'm paddling more and more and more in winter. But I don't wear a helmet,
Yeah.
you know?
Many people don't wear a helmet on the sea. I think in some ways it's a bit abnormal. I've certainly been asked by random people I've met when I'm out on the sea, why are you wearing a helmet? And that's just my background in whitewater. It's part of my uniform. There's a rare day I would not be wearing it.
And it's interesting because Jeff Allen on the course, Jeff Allen, internationally renowned paddler, he was saying that the most accidents that you tend to find is when people get onto land for a stop. Maybe it's a wee stop or a snack stop, and they get out the kayak, they take the helmet off because they're no longer in the water, and then they slip and hit their heads on the rocks.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's interesting because your
Yeah.
guard's let down, a bit more
Yeah.
relaxed. So
Ah,
am I going to start carrying a helmet on my sit on top? Probably not. But if I'm surfing, or when I was out with you the other day, I had a helmet on, and I think I probably, in a sitting kayak, if I'm likely to be surfing, don't tend to surf my sit on top. If it's surfy, I tend to just jump out and wade. But then perhaps maybe a helmet would be a better call. And I think it's about being safe and thinking about that course really prompted me to think about my safety. I think that's the point I'm trying to get to.
that's good to know. I think for me the helmet is a multi thing. It's warm in the winter. I'm paddling on my own, so if something does happen, like if I fall out my boat, in surf the boat can crack you on the head. You can crack your head on the sand, and it's I'd feel naked without it.
And you made a really good point there, because the thing I'd never considered when I'm fishing is the boat could hit you on the head. And that's the thing that I don't think about. I carry a knife because I know that the lines might get tangled around me, so I can cut the lines. But I've never considered that the boat could crack me on the back of the head and knock me out. And obviously, if you're knocked out in water face down, you're not going to be having a good day.
It's highly unlikely to happen, but as sea paddlers, everything we have, it's almost, I kind of joke that we're pessimists because we go out there expecting to die, so we take all this stuff, to keep us alive. And it may be just part of the pessimistic sea kayaker.
But I think, but as I said, my opinion's totally changed. I think it's important to have, and I probably will start carrying it with me as a standard rather than just when I'm out in a sit on top. Just when I'm in a sitting kayak, or if I'm ever in my whitewater boat, yeah, I'm wearing a helmet. If I'm paddling at the Whitadder or all the other places that I'm hoping to take that boat, yeah, I've got a helmet. I bought a helmet for that reason. But a really good comment, which is that actually, I probably should have one on my sit on top. So it really made me think about it.
You mentioned a throw bag. Do you have a throw, like a waist tow line?
Nope. And that was another thing that came up from that course
as well.
Yeah. So you and I both paddle a lot by ourselves, or we tend to paddle together. So, and we're not leading groups, and we're not, kayaking with sort of novice kayakers. We both take our own responsibility for our safety. We're not leading groups. I suppose is the point I'm trying to make there.
Yeah. The interesting thing was when I joined along with the incident management guys when they were doing their little bit of rock hopping, the guy who was involved in running the course said, "Oh, I don't have my guiding kit," and I missed a trick there in not asking him what was in that guiding kit.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to have known, but I was a bit kind of starstruck.
That's fair. All right, Nicola, I've kind of gone through in a garbled kind of way the equipment that I carry. What do you take out with you?
I do like a top to toe rundown. So when I'm getting prepared to go, so rather than you're kind of like, so I start with when I'm loading my boat, helmet, layers depending on season. So in the summer and autumn, I like to wear peak neoskins. Find them really, really comfy. And then move into dry trousers as the weather starts to get colder and the water gets colder. And I've got a full dry suit as well. So top to bottom, or it's actually bottom to top, it's easier. So I've got my underlayers, dry trousers, socks. I'm still getting cold feet in the winter, so not quite there yet. I wear a pair of thin socks over the top of my dry suit socks to protect them, and then wetsuit boots. Although I do have my eye on your wife's wetsuit boots because they look fantastic. NRS Boundary boots, are
Are they
they?
NRS Boundaries? Yeah, they are.
They
NRS
look
Boundary boots.
amazing, yeah.
She walked with you. I know that you
Yeah.
both walked down the other day, and you walked down to the harbour, and you got on the water. She could just straight into a boat. She gets out. She can walk away again.
Yeah.
They take quite a while to dry. That would be the
Right.
only criticism I have of them. And this is just a feature of the boot because it's a hard shell with a wetsuit sock on the inside.
Right.
Is that
Okay.
it takes a while for the boots to dry because the inside doesn't air with the hard shell. You know, like it's a rubber shell, like a shoe, like a trainer. The only, yeah, and what she said was in her dry trousers, she can't get her dry suit in the shoe, which may have been my fault for buying the wrong size. Well, actually, they were present for my dad, but obviously I did the size ordering. So I might have told her the wrong size, him the wrong size to buy for her. And she said that when she has her dry suit trousers on, she can't actually get her foot in the shoe and it rubs. So she's bought a pair of dry trousers without feet, so they've got a cuff on the bottom. So she now, instead of having the whole sock and her foot being full dry suit, she has a cuff at her ankles that then sits on the top of the boot, inside the boot, just on the inside of the boot.
That's the thing. Size up in
Yeah.
dry boots.
Well, I didn't think
Live
that.
and learn.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's yeah. So you've got
Yes,
your
I've got
boot socks.
bottoms and then dry cag. I've got a dry cag or a semi-dry cag. Again, well, my dry cag is really on its last legs. I sent it off to be repaired, and they called up and said, "Are you sure? It's not worth it." So yeah, need a new one of those. And then spray deck PFD, which has a whistle. I attach my electronic flare here, PLB here. Knife goes in my little pocket, and I sometimes stick a snack in there as well, but snacks are in the boat mostly. Yeah, helmet on, and I think that's everything. So that's me.
That's you.
And then the boat, I have water. Sometimes carry water in my PFD.
You do, because you put your Camelback in your back of your PFD, which I think is brilliant.
But it makes it heavy, and in the winter it's cold. I find it cold. So water and food in the boat, and I've started to take more food than I probably need, just in case.
This was you start feeding me.
Well, there is that too. Yes, it was noted that Nikki brought her own snack when we paddled together the other day. And what did you suggest she took?
Did I suggest you took?
A muffin.
I did suggest. I thought a muffin was a brilliant snack out in the water.
A salty muffin.
A salty wet muffin. It would be really good. I thought a muffin was a great idea, and I was like, "Why don't you take this muffin? Because it's huge. You know, the muffins from Tesco's or was it Asda are big muffins, and I thought that would do me for a paddle." And she took this little tiny green oaty bar thing.
It's a double. It's a double packet.
She still took her own snack. Whereas I rely on your protein bars.
Yes, I'm gonna have to go back to Aldi to get the horrible ones. And what else? I take a pump, sponge, spare paddles. Doing the rundown here. And I also carry, in the winter, I carry my dry robe in the back of the boat. Been thinking about adding to my safety kit. Oh, I also have I have a little clear plastic bag, and in there I have a blister plaster, tissues, lip seal, my house key, which is in the boat, which probably isn't the most sensible place to have it if I get separated from my boat. But then hopefully my children are at home or my parents have a spare key. But about buying a security blanket. No, not a security blanket.
Thermal blanket.
Yeah. What are they called? Survival blanket.
Survival blanket. Survival blankets are interesting because they function to keep heat in, but they won't warm someone up. So they'll reflect any heat you have back into yourself. So it's always good to put if I was going to put a survival blanket on someone, I would put a blanket over the top of them
Right.
as well, if you know what I mean. Like, so I'd have the survival blanket and then a blanket over the top, because it's not really it's going to reflect any heat that's already there. It's going to capture the heat that's there. But if someone is so cold that they aren't producing enough of their own heat, actually, it's not going to do that much. You know, it's not going to do that much of a good job. And then obviously, you know, if you put a warm blanket on someone over the top of them and they've got a silver foil sheet on, well, it's going to reflect the heat back out as well. So I think they're great. I think they're really important to have for those emergency situations, but they also have their limitations in sort of longer term use, I suppose. You know, if you're already warm, they're okay to keep you warm. Yeah. But if you're, you know, already hypothermic,
not so good.
Not so good.
I tend not to get out these days when I go for a paddle anyway. You know, I just snack on the water. Don't really need to get out to stretch my legs. Just stay in the boat. Pogies are the other things in the winter.
Good call.
Oh yeah, and then I also I have my iPhone in a pouch around my neck, and in my front pocket I carry a little Nokia push button phone, because sometimes the iPhone is impossible to unlock when the case is wet. But apparently there's a way you can emergency call from an iPhone without having to slide and unlock.
You can, actually, because
Yes.
Ezra sometimes, when he's playing with your phone, does it.
Oh.
Yeah, it never rings. It's never rung, but it's got to the stage where it says, "Do you want to make an emergency call?"
Yeah, I think it's some combination of button pushes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think for my one, it's triple tap the side button, or quadruple tap, or multiple taps of the side button, because Ezra has definitely, if I'm going to give you a 3-year-old a phone, has definitely thought about it. It's never rung, thankfully. But yeah, I've definitely had that with him. I think that's really, that's a really good list that you've gone through, and that's a really good way of thinking about it. If I were to think about what I carry in the same sort of sensible, sort of conformed way, with makes sense. Now you've got another thing.
I forgot my paddles. And this is why I do a top to toe check before I leave the house, because I have walked to the beach and I've not had my spray deck and I've not had my paddles. So I've started doing sorry.
And you carry 2 paddles, because you've got your double Dutch carbon fibre
historic
squiggly
museum
paddle.
piece. And I also have another double Dutch carbon fibre, new squiggly.
And your new one's the one you use as a spare.
It is, because I'm waiting for the old ones. The old ones don't split. The old ones are very old, but they're still going, and touch wood. They're comfy, you know, and they're not yet a Greenland, but sorry, I interrupted you.
Are you thinking about getting a Greenland?
Everybody tells me I should get a Greenland for my shoulder, that it will ease my shoulder, but apart from perhaps suggesting to my dad that he could fashion one as a winter project, I'm not going to go out and buy one. You know.
Interesting, isn't it? I noticed that one guy on the course was using a Greenland.
Yeah.
He had spares. His spares were sort of standard, sort of Euro-bladed paddles.
Where did this term come from?
The internet.
It's one of my bugbears.
They call it Euro-bladed.
They do. And wet exits, but we'll move on to that, and we'll save that. We'll save that for another day.
You're just between swims, Nicola. That's all you are.
That's the third one.
We'll come on to those. We'll do another episode on phrases we don't like in kayaking.
Yes, phrases that annoy Nicola.
Yeah, paddles. Good, because I forgot my paddle a few weeks ago when we paddled together. It does happen.
It does happen. You think it'd be obvious, but mine hides in the corner of the kitchen in a paddle bag, so it's not, unless I'm thinking about it.
Okay, at least you didn't drive all the way from Edinburgh to go paddling and forget your paddle and your dry suit, which is my friend Russell did not very long ago. I had to lend him equipment. And he's somewhat smaller than I am.
Yes.
So doesn't fit in my clothing very well.
Well, at least it's not the other way, right?
Well, yeah, that's true.
Sorry, so
my kit. So if I was going to go from head to toe, I talked about helmets already, how I'm probably going to start carrying one. I've got my PFD. So I like to think top down. So I've got my my PFD, which has my radio and my knife. I also keep some fishing stuff in the pockets of my PFD. I wear an NRS Odyssey, which has got loads of pockets. gives me loads of space, and I keep my camera and my GoPro on there as well. I've got an NRS jacket, which I bought. It's a semi-dry jacket that I bought like way back at the beginning. It was the first CAG I owned. It's beginning to go. The seals on the cuffs are all ripped, and it's just getting a bit old now. For winter this year, I said I was going to get a dry suit, and then I hurt my back, so I haven't done it yet. But I probably will. Probably will purchase a dry suit sometime around Christmas. I don't know if Nikki listens to this, but if she does,
I will suggest that she listens to this one.
yeah, and gets me a dry suit for Christmas. But yeah, no. So that's what I wear on my top. Obviously, layers underneath, and layers I just wear whatever I need to for the conditions. So sometimes it's just a t-shirt. In the summer, I'll tend to wear a t-shirt and some sort of thermally layer. Just again, it's about dressing for the cold, but we'll come back to that in a second. I wear semi-dry trousers. Again, that fold into my top, and I wear wetsuit boots. I just wear 7mm thick boots with I've got some really good socks, and I'm trying to remember the name of the socks. Smartwool. I've got some really nice Smartwool socks, and they keep my feet warm even when they're wet. They keep my feet warm. I've been out in close to 0 temperatures, air temperatures, with wet feet, and they've not got cold. So that's a good sign. I don't use pogies because I'm often fishing. I don't like pogies. I actually just gave a set of pogies away to Russell. I've sort of given him them on permanent loan because I just don't use them. But I do wear gloves. I wear neoprene gloves. I've got some NRS kayak fish guiding gloves, which are sort of half finger-tipped gloves that I wear. The only problem I find is they've got a seam that runs on the inside of your thumb, and that seam sometimes rubs my thumb when I'm sort of making a paddle on my non-dominant side where I twist the blade. Sometimes if I'm not sort of paddling properly, I'll twist on that seam, and I end up with a rub on the inside of my thumbs. And I think that's pretty much what I carry on me. I don't carry a PLB, which you do. I don't have any flares. Maybe need to consider investing in some sort of flare. I do carry a torch. I've always got a torch inside my PFD.
What torch do you have out of
I
interest?
just have a cheap waterproof torch that I picked up from Amazon. It's a head torch. Amazon waterproof head torch. It maybe isn't waterproof, but it's not dyed yet, so it gets rinsed after every use, so it's okay. But I wouldn't necessarily be submerging it. I don't think that's going to do it any favors. And then in my boat, obviously I carry 2 fishing rods normally, because I'm kayak fishing. That's what I'm there to do. And then depending on what fish I'm trying to catch will depend on what else I take out with me. But I have a fish hatch that I have at the back of the boat that I take on my kayak, which inevitably, if I take the fish hatch, I don't catch fish. If I don't take the fish hatch, I'm catching fish all over the place. And it's okay in the winter when it's cold and it's wet, that's fine. But in the summer when it's warm, having the fish out on the deck and the warmth in the sun is just not very pleasant, and you're not going to be able to keep them and eat them. So for me, it's about having a nice cool area. I fill it with ice in the summer, so that the fish are on ice straight away. So there's lots of sort of space. And then I've got a bait hatch that I put bait into, but that's all sort of fancy kayak fishing stuff that I carry if I need to. I also carry 2 GoPros, a front camera and a back camera. So I'm always got one looking at my face. I've got one looking at what's going on. And I did a paddle with you as a little test. I put one up behind me. I got a wee fakey one, a wee fakey GoPro cheap that someone gave me to test. I put it up over the back and sort of pointed it down and got a sort of sky view as well, which was quite interesting. But the problem with having all the cameras on the boat is I don't want to lose them. So I'm very paranoid about them. So I have them leashed on. But then, when I'm paddling around, especially surf launches, if there is surf on the launch, I get a bit paranoid about losing them because they're expensive and I don't want to lose them. Same with my rods and my reels. My rods and reels aren't cheap. So with all that in mind, this is why I'm trying to buy the Stealth Pro Fisher, because it's got an indoor hatch. So you can launch and recover with all your stuff in a hatch in the front, and everything's safe.
Brilliant.
Out the way. I think that's everything that I carry.
Right.
Yeah. Dressing. Oh, go on, pause.
The thing I don't carry is a radio.
And why?
And why? And you do. My research when I was coming to buy either a PLB radio or both was that there'd been an incident in the Forth, so just in towards Edinburgh from where we are, where the radio failed to raise help. So based on that decision, based on that incident, I decided not to buy a radio at that stage, but to go for a PLB instead. But a radio is still on my list. I'd love to cross. We have an island, the Isle of May, which is 12.5 miles from Dunbar, which would be across a shipping lane. I'd love to do that paddle one day, and I will buy a radio and do the course for that trip. But I feel that from my little excursions, 2 or 3 hours either side, I made the decision not to buy one.
And you've got a phone, you've got a PLB.
Got 2 phones and a PLB.
So you can always raise help, and that's the key, isn't it? It's not necessarily about having a radio, it's about raising the alarm.
And my flare, electronic flare.
We've kind of gone through both our equipment lists there and how we like to prep. I have a checklist. You go through a mental run. I try and use a checklist, although recently I've not been so good at it because my phone's been here, there, and everywhere. My phone's been on a bit of an adventure to the insurance company and back a few times, and thankfully it's now working, but my checklist was always on my phone, so I haven't got that. Just before we took a little break there, we talked about raising the alarm and how important it is, and you obviously have the PLB and your 2 phones. I carry a radio and my phone, and you have the electronic flare. I suppose, when thinking about a radio, it's important to know your local legislations, because in Britain, your radio needs to be registered if it's got DSC. If not, there's a course you need to go on. And emergency calling is probably something that we could maybe talk about in another podcast, because I feel like we're going down a rabbit hole here.
Yes.
And we're going to get a bit lost. There are many, many things that we could talk about, because there's what 3 words, and there's all sorts of stuff. So let's maybe hold that, and actually we'll come back to that, because that's a really interesting conversation. We've just prompted our next podcast topic, I think.
A future one.
But one of the things that you mentioned to me just there while we were in our break was thinking about, what it means to paddle in cold weather, and the fact that, when I talk about wearing a semi-dry suit, actually that's going to only have it's only going to be helpful for so long in Scotland, especially on the east coast here, where our water temperatures vary from 5 degrees to 16 degrees and don't get much warmer.
No, they don't. We had a weird year. Was that last year when the North Sea was 5 degrees warmer than it should be, and it was noticeably warm. It felt like the mid. But generally, I don't think this year it's even got up to 16, maybe for a couple of days, and just on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So technically it's cold water. Anything below 15 degrees is cold water all year round.
It's important that we dress for that eventuality. So, I think one of the hardest things, I talk about this a few times in a few different videos of mine on my channel, where I've talked about how it's really difficult to sort of guess. You're always guessing what to wear. I remember paddling in Islay last year, and it was roasting. It was 30 degrees. And I was like, well, what do I wear here? Because it's 30 degrees, and I've got dry trousers on, but I ended up not wearing my cag because I was just too hot. I could not have paddled in my cag. It was boiling the bag, and if I had a short sleeved cag, yeah, that was what I needed that day. But I didn't have one, so I opted for a sun blocking top and lots of sun cream, because again, we don't want to go the other way and get too hot. But if I'd gone in the water and I'd been in the water for an extended period of time, West Coast Scotland, so the water temperatures are a bit warmer, but I definitely would have been in a bit of trouble if I'd been in for an extended period of time. Is that everything on that? Yeah, I think so. I think you want to add to...
Nope, mine's gone blank.
So the other thing about cold water, you said, we don't tend to get up above much more on this coast than about 15, 16, and you don't think we've got above 16 this year. I've seen 16, I definitely haven't seen 17, so... Yeah, last June, so this is last year when we had the warmer temperatures, just before it started to get warm, I went for a free dive here in Dunbar, and I'm trying to remember the dates. I'll pull them up in my head in a second. It was like the 6th of June. The water's just beginning to get warm. May, June's when we really started to get that temperature increase, and I think it was 12 degrees. And I'd been in the water. I was in there about an hour, Didn't shoot any fish, didn't see any fish. Don't even know if I even unhooked my gun. Like, that's how bad the spearfishing trip was. I think I just dove down and back up, and I hadn't been in the water for a while. Went down to Wales 2 days later, 9th of June, so 3 full days, 9th of June, got in the water in Wales, in Pembrokeshire, where they were having they'd had a heat wave for 2 weeks, and it was noticeably warmer. The water temperature was 18 degrees. So I literally, in 3 days, went from 11 to 18-degree water temperature. It was stunning, and I didn't shoot any fish down there either, but I could have. There wasn't. There were a few pollocks swimming around, big pollocks swimming around, but I was really after that fabled bass, so I ended up not taking anything. But it was a really, really big, big temperature difference, and it was quite stunning. My body was not ready for the warmth. I was actually too hot. I kept flushing my suit.
Yeah.
Because I was just too warm.
We're acclimatized to the cold.
Yeah.
I think what you said there about knowing what to wear is a tricky one, because, well, what not to wear, cotton, Yeah. Although now I did actually read something recently about wearing cotton if you're too hot over the top of your dry suit to cool you down. Did I read that right? I think so. But generally, we wouldn't wear cotton. We wouldn't wear jeans. The thing that scares me the most is kind of April time, when the weather starts to get better. And without doubt, there will be somebody out there on either a paddleboard or a jet ski in a shorty wetsuit when the water is probably only still 5 degrees, but it's warm out of the water.
That's when it's its coldest. The water is its coldest in April. The most cold I have ever been after a paddle or after a free diving session was in April. I remember went for free diving in April off the Long Craigs down at Dunbar, so Belhaven Way, and my lips were sore because it was only a bit of me that was exposed, was sort of my face. Yeah. And my lips were cold. They were sore because it was so cold. That was the 5th of April or sometime early April. And then on the 18th of April was when Russell and I had our accident in Big Surf that we were talking about on the podcast last week.
Yeah.
And when we had that snowstorm when we got really cold. So April is a risky time.
It is.
Anything else you want to add, Nicola?
Nope, that's my list ticked.
I think we're good. We covered equipment. So we've talked about our equipment that we carry, talked about what we wear. Nicola wants a new helmet.
I do.
Because all your clothing matches. That's what we've not said. It's all your clothing matches.
It wasn't. I do like the colour pink, but it wasn't by design. Honest.
And there's a pink
sweet protection.
Sweet protection helmet.
Yeah, bright pink. But is it the right pink? Because P&H Sunset Pink is actually slightly purpley. Ta-da!
It is slightly purpley. That's true.
And this pink is pink neon. So I don't need it. But anybody,
Anybody wants to purchase that?
No. Sponsor me.
Sponsor you.
No. Santa.
With my lovely black curtain, just to try and change the light of the room, falling down, I think we'll call it a day there. It seems like a place to call it a day. Thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this podcast, along with any others, please give it a like, a subscribe, give it a comment, follow us on whatever media channel you're using. And thank you very much for coming along.
Nice comments only, please. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for watching.
Take care.
Bye.
Nice comments only. That's not going to happen.